McLaren has unveiled the W1, the brand's latest halo model, and this is the most powerful McLaren ever made. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at this design from a front, side, and rear, and also the interior. If you want to talk bucket seats, this definitely has proper buckets for seats. But before we jump in to Photoshop here, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver. I'm gonna link this down in the description. Let's see what this is all about. I think it looks better than the Senna. I think they went back to not just, even though it is a very functional design, everything has to do with aerodynamics here, but I still think it looks better than the Senna, more in line with the P1. That was also a beautiful, but still very functional looking design. So the 1,258 horsepower McLaren W1 is the P1 successor and the most powerful McLaren ever made. A plug-in hybrid V8 powertrain and Formula One inspired aerodynamics elements come with this car. The brand's latest halo model, an homage to the F1 and the P1, of course. Twin turbo V8, twin turbo 4-liter V8 paired with an electric motor. That is how you get over 1,200 horsepower in this thing. Can provide up to a claimed 2,205 pounds of downforce, meaning that it could almost drive upside down in a tunnel, which is just insane to see. When you look at all the aerodynamic features that went into this design, it's pretty amazing to see all the thought. This is like almost 80% engineering, this design, and 20% just aesthetics. But I still think the end product is a beautiful looking car. Now the W1 will of course be built in very limited quantities, just 399 cars in total, and they are already spoken for, all of them. So its active aerodynamic elements include a rear wing that extends backward by 11.8 inches, and that is a huge extension in the rear end. And that is, of course, to provide the downforce necessary. This is a rear-wheel drive only car, so you definitely need to have some force pushing down on the rear end to be able to put all this power down. A race drive mode activates the W1's most aggressive setup, lowering the front suspension by 1.5 inches and the rear by 0.7 inches to put the car as close to the track surface as possible. This engine is completely brand new for McLaren. The power-dense power plant features a flat plane crank design, revs up to 9,200 RPM and produces 916 horsepower on its own. And then you have, of course, the 342 horsepower radial flux electric motor, and together they make up the 1,258 horsepower and 988 pound-feet of torque sent to the rear wheels only through an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic. They say that this can hit 0 to 60 in about 2.7 seconds, but keep in mind that the Artura can make the same sprint in 2.6 seconds, so this is a little bit slower, at least on paper, than the Artura. But I do think where the speed comes in here are in the corners. With this type of downforce, it's definitely going to be faster around the track than the Artura, and it tops out at 217 miles per hour. McLaren claims the level 2 onboard charger can take the battery up to 80% in 22 minutes, but you only get, this is not an EV in any sense, because you only get 2 miles of electric range if you want to drive it in pure electric mode. But the idea here is to have the electric power help with the instant power and the acceleration from a standstill. And this means that they also ditched an alternator or starter motor in the W1, because all of those functions are controlled by the hybrid's electric motor. So a set of 19-inch front wheels, and you have 20s in the back, so you have a staggered setup, are wrapped in standard Pirelli P0 tires. And this is a road-going hypercar, but it's been developed with racing in mind. And McLaren says that W1 has lapped the Nardo reference circuit an entire 3 seconds faster than the Senna, and the Senna was not a slow car by any means. The W1's racing-inspired steering wheel has 2 buttons, one that boosts acceleration for a short time, and one that temporarily reduces drag by adjusting the rear wing. The seats here, look at these beautiful seats. You sit deep inside of this bucket here. I love the spec that we have here. It looks beautiful. Very minimalistic in typical McLaren style, this interior. I like this interior. There's not a lot going on here. That is exactly what I want to have in interiors for hypercars like this, because I want to be focused on the driving. So you have an 8-inch touchscreen on the dashboard. You do have Apple CarPlay. You got to have a little bit of convenience features in a $2.1 million car. A Bowers & Wilkins stereo system is also available. McLaren says you have 4 cubic foot luggage shelf behind the seats, can accommodate 2 weekend bags or 2 racing helmets. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here and let's have a look at this beauty. I think it's a beauty when I look at it. It looks a lot more organic than the Senna. I mean, look at the curvatures that we have going on all around this car. So let's start with the front end here and let's see what's going on. Again, every single detail here, every single curvature on this car has a function, has an aerodynamic function, obviously. But that doesn't mean that we need to make the car look ugly. I wasn't a huge fan of the Senna's design because it looks too static, but I do of course understand why they did it. They want to have as much functionality and aerodynamics as possible. We have this line here for the headlights. We have a tiny little slot underneath the headlight here as well. Even though this looks like it doesn't really do anything, I'm pretty sure this little slot here where air flows in has a massive function for the front end downforce or cooling or whatever they have functionality wise for this little feature. Then we have this intake in the front end, and you can see that we have a big scoop up top on the hood here where air then flows out, and again it creates a lot more downforce in the front end as well. We need to plant this car both in the front and in the rear, of course, when we have this much power and when you want to do a car that is quicker on the track than the Senna. But look at the styling here. We have a small little wing right here on top, right where the side mirror meets the bodywork, and these are the type of lines that I was missing in the Senna. These fluid organic lines flowing across the entire entire body of the car, and I do think they did a great job with that here. I also like that we have a separation of the sort of the wing of the front end, the pure functionality part of the rear end, which is this lower section with all these wings here. I like that they separated this graphically with the black piece in the lower section and then having the body color for the more artistic or stylized part up top. We have more inlets here as well, as you can see in the hood. Now looking at the side view, and this is the biggest difference here from the Senna, this just looks stunning because we have this fluid almost 720 design here with this big curvature going right above the front axle. This is exactly what we want to see. The center point of the axle, if we draw a line straight up, we want the top point, the highest point of the front axle. If you're sketching a car, this is a good thing to think about. The highest point of the curvature for the front fender should be right above the center point of the front axle. And you can see that that is exactly what is going on right here. And then it dips down, coming back, greenhouse, up, beautiful muscle over the rear axle here as well. We have sort of 2 different muscles over the rear axle, and then this is the wing that extends 11.8 inches or something like that backwards to create the drag or the downforce that you need in the rear end. Looks like we have a hood scoop up top here as well, air flowing in right there. This is sort of a race car inspired window opening, so I don't think you can roll down the entire window because you can see there's nothing down here for the window to actually go into, so they needed to create a smaller window down here which has the space to go into this orange piece that you see right here. But this is a beautiful line, this intake right here, with this curvature going down here, creating this V shape in addition to this black graphics that we have going on here. And again, same design here like we have in the front end and also in the rear. We have this line now separating the graphic features, the functional features down low, which are these black pieces. You can see that in the diffuser here in the back as well, from the top piece that is the stylized, more aesthetic, more emotional looking part of the design. I do like the design of the greenhouse here as well. This being a McLaren, doesn't really have the Lambo line, which would go something like this. Instead, we have a proper A-pillar, and then the hood sort of sticks out, and we have this little section here, dip, in this area that we don't have on, for example, specifically Lamborghini. Ferrari has more of a McLaren style as well when it comes to the positioning of the A-pillar. Now looking at the wheels and tires here, beautiful looking wheels. Too bad that every single car now are coming out with black wheels. I would much rather have these be in silver. I think that would be really cool. 20s in the rear end. Not sure the dimensions of the rear tires, but they are very fat. We have 19s in the front, same diameter for the brake discs, both front and rear. Now, looking at the rear end here, and this is by far my favorite view for this, because this is a clear evolution of what they did with the P1, meaning when it comes to the rear end graphics, the taillights, we have this cutout here, typical McLaren cutout, which I love to see when the bodywork plays along with the functionality, with the functional pieces of the car. You can see all the mechanical features in the black section here being wrapped and being housed, embraced by this more organic feel that we have going around here. And this is what I'm talking about, the LED that follows this line. This is very much like we had in the P1, where you had that more organic shape in the rear end following the outline of the bodywork with a single LED strip. And this is an evolution of that. And then we have a cutout here for the rear tires building into this absolutely massive diffuser in the rear end. Just look at how far this thing sticks up. And we have the center positioned tailpipes there as well. Absolutely stunning design. I do like when car companies do this, when they have this connection from the functional pieces, the diffuser in this case, and the more stylized features that we have on in the orange pieces of the car. It just looks beautiful, and it looks like a, I don't know, it looks industrial, but at the same time, they didn't lose the automotive design feel that I want to see. And even if we have a, super hypercar like this one is, that is focused on, track times and stuff like that, I still want to see some beauty in the car and not 100% engineering. And that is the mix that is very hard to do, and specifically in a car like this, but McLaren absolutely nailed it here. I do like this LED that we have up top in the roof. So this is the interior here, obviously. And check out these bucket seats, how much padding and support you have. This looks to be a support for your knees. So even if you slide down in here, you have all the bolstering on the sides here because you sit deep within this seat. You can see all the big walls on both sides of your body when you're sitting in this car. You still need to support your legs. You don't want your legs go flying all around when you're taking the corners in this car. So this is a very cool little design features for the interior here. I actually like that it's completely orange like this. They have another press photo where you have a darker tone and the more I think it was like brownish tone for that one, but I actually prefer, when we have a car like this, you want it to be a little bit shouty, and I do think this looks very cool, in addition, in contrast with the black styling that we have for the rest of the body. Sort of like the exterior definitely comes back in here for the interior. And overall, I've always been a fan of McLaren's interior designs because they keep things very minimalistic. There's nothing crazy going on here. Not a lot of huge screens sticking up like this. We have a small 8-inch infotainment screen. And 8 inches, I think, in my opinion, is the perfect size for an infotainment screen. I don't want to have bigger screens than 8 inches. That is totally fine for me. We have this almost fractal design up here where the orange fades into the black pieces up top. Some different drive settings here for this button, and then we have these two buttons that we talked about on each side of the steering wheel here. Big surfboard paddles like you want in a car like this. The gauge cluster looks beautiful as well. It looks like it is housed properly, so it's not going to create any sort of glare. So this is a fantastic design by McLaren. I'm glad to see that they moved back a little bit towards this more automotive and emotional design compared to the Senna, which was a much more static design than the P1 and now the W1 as well. And I'm not sure if I'm going to ever see one of these in real life, but I definitely hope so, because this is a car that I just want to walk around and explore all the curvatures and the functionality, the airflow, try to figure that out by just looking at the car. That would be very cool to do. But well done, McLaren and the entire design team. This is a car that is faster than the Senna, but has a much more beautiful exterior design.